I'm Allie. I came out after 20 years of marriage and I have 3 kids.
I'm Melissa and I have 2 kids and I came out at 37 after an 11-year marriage.
This podcast is about coming out later and the struggles and victories that come with it.
When coming out feels like the end of the world, but it's really just the beginning.
This is the Lesbian Chronicles. Welcome to the Lesbian Chronicles. We are here today with a really kick-ass guest that I've been super excited about ever since we exchanged emails. And her name is Allie. And I think what really got my interest was that one of our first interactions, her husband was on the email string. And I just thought there was something so loving and inclusive about that. So that got me reading, and then we've exchanged a lot since, and I was so glad when you agreed to come on, Allie. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited and terrified at the same time.
Don't be terrified. We're nice.
Definitely don't be terrified, yeah. You're probably far more qualified than we are to speak about anything, as you're a research scientist, and we are just professional Googlers.
Yeah. Well, I do talk for a living and use words for a living. So that, yeah, okay. I'll go with that.
Exactly. Well, I guess to kick it off, give us just a tiny bit of background, Allie, on what made you even find Lesbian Chronicles and reach out. So, yeah, I've been going kind of crazy for the last couple of years, I think would be a safe way to put it. And I think one of the things I said to you was I wasn't sure what was going on. I wasn't sure if it was sexuality. I wasn't sure if it was the pandemic. There were so many things that it could have been, right? There's so many external things going on. My daughter was going through puberty. So, we had all that drama and conflict. And then I was also perimenopausal, but I knew that something wasn't right. Right. And I was going through a lot of symptoms and experiences that made me feel like I need something's not right here. I need to do something different. So I tried a lot of different steps, but one of them was to learn more about perimenopause and find out what was happening that way. And then the other thing was to look at my journal and figure out, okay, is this sexuality? And the whole process was just trying to rule out what's what, what's the stress of the pandemic and what's the stress of just life and having, teenagers. And then what is really me? What is truly me, and how can I find what is me? And discovering that was the most important thing, figuring that out. And almost like a deep dive into, so you start deep diving in and then it starts uncovering questions about your sexuality, clearly. Yeah, I mean, that's always been there. So I've always kind of wondered, I've always questioned, I remember, this is a funny story, when I was in 12, so pubertal, right? Okay. I lived near this dead end street, and somebody had dumped a bunch of Hustler magazines. They were clearly getting rid of them, right? Yeah. And they didn't want to use the recycling bin. So they just dumped a bunch of these magazines. And so all the kids in the neighborhood are like, oh, look at this. Oh my God. They're like treasure found.
Oh my God. That's an amazing find.
So we're all grabbing them. And I mean, I'm assuming it's Hustler because I came across some that were girl on girl. Okay. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. Yeah. And I knew I shouldn't. Right. So here I was at 12 and I saved some of these. Right. Whoa. But I knew I shouldn't have them. Oh, my God. That's kind of ballsy for a research scientist.
I was going to say, but also I'm having memory where literally just right now that I had a Playboy magazine that I kept locked away when I was a teenager. Yeah. Why?
I had the experience of a friend of mine actually posed for Playboy. She and her partner were very exhibitionist. And that was my excuse that I could buy it. Right. Because, my friend's in it. So it's okay.
Penis Kid articles, right?
Right. I'm reading it for the articles about my friend.
Definitely in Hustler. They're really known for those articles.
Yeah. The erotica is sometimes not too bad, but yeah.
Okay. So you snag the mag and you're heavy into it.
Yeah, no, I just had it next to my bed and I just knew it made me feel good, but I didn't really know what that meant. Right.
And then give some context as to what year this was too, so that we I don't know if you want to say your age, but
yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I'm 50-ish. So yeah, so this is 80s,
Okay.
And so this is a time when you probably didn't even have the words.
No,
right?
You don't talk about it. It's very, very stigmatized. So this is a big time of AIDS. This was the Fight AIDS era, stand up, fight AIDS, right? Like the whole Rent, show, mm-hmm. Like this is that era. And so you don't do that. In fact, I remember being in gym class and I like tagged a girl out at second base. Like I got my glove, I tag her out and she was pissed. And so she's leaving. This is like middle school. And she's walking away and she's like, she touched me in my crotch. She's a lesy.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know what a lesy was.
Right.
So I'm like, oh gosh, I better look that up. And of course we didn't have the internet. So
I was going to say, where'd you go? The future?
I don't even know. But eventually I put it together and was like, oh, that's a bad thing. Got it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there's just like little episodes like that you learn really quickly. Right. And then once boys start to get interested in me, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's me because they're interested, right? I think you had that on one of your podcasts. Like, well, I guess I'm straight because boys are interested.
Yeah, that's how I felt. It was very much like, well, I can't be gay because guys are interested. So not gay.
You kind of just do the status quo. All my friends are talking about boys, so I'm going to pick one of the boys too. And then we're going to have these boys.
Yeah. And it's about, you want to belong and you want to have a boyfriend like everyone else. And so great, I have a boyfriend now. And that's, it's kind of gross when he sticks his tongue in my mouth, but I guess that's what we do.
We'll push through.
I'll push through this. Yeah. And then it continued. Like even like in high school, I had a really great group of girlfriends. But I had boyfriends. I started having sex. I was like, I guess this is what we do. Like it wasn't very exciting.
Like I thought about this the other day. Did you ever feel like I remember my college boyfriend, like I was kind of into it. Like I remember sleeping with him and like looking forward to sleeping with him. So it's like in some ways,
like that.
Yeah, like it wasn't like I was like wildly gay back then. It was more like I knew I was into girls, but I wasn't going to act on it. I knew I was into women, but I would never have done anything. And this boyfriend in college still felt pretty good. We would, go to frat parties. You're dancing. You're excited.
Can you separate out though what felt good? Like, because to me, what I realized is that the sexual intercourse wasn't the part that felt good. So what felt good was having somebody that liked me, right? And I felt attractive,
right?
And I liked the kissing and the making out and the intimacy part. But the sex part was complicated, and I didn't, it was like kind of a relief if I had my period and it wasn't going to happen. Like that was a week off, but I got the intimacy. And by the way, I didn't know I was gay. Like I really didn't. I just knew some things didn't fit, but I hadn't put all the pieces together yet, so I wouldn't have even said that. But I didn't really like, there were times where I cried after sex and the boyfriend was like, what is up?
Yeah. This girl,
like, are you okay? Like it freaked them out.
They thought you were just so emotionally into it.
If I were smarter, I could say that, but no, I would admit to them, I'm a very open person. I would say I was picturing women. I feel really embarrassed. Like I want to be, and some of them responded positively, like, oh, that's cool. Whatever works. And some of them were like, you should be with me if you're with me. And I was like, I know, I'm really sorry. And,
oh man, that's bold. I can't imagine ever saying that.
I know that is bold, Allie.
Well, I think girl on girl doesn't freak guys out.
No, they
that is true.
It. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of a turn on to them. Yeah. And so I don't think I remember one guy when I was crying and I told him that he did say it as a threat. Like, why am I not thinking about him?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's different. I think
that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of the times when we initially start talking or thinking about this or talking to our husbands about it, like their minds, it is not like, oh, you're thinking about women, so that means you're gay. I remember that was something even my husband said. He was like, just because, you're thinking about women or had a dream about a woman doesn't mean you're gay. Because in their minds, it's like they've watched so much porn and whatever over the years that it's normal for them, for two women to be together and for it to not be, gay.
Well, and sometimes
just a sexual experience.
That is, like Jamie would say, many straight women are turned on by gay porn. Mm-hmm. So it's not
and that's exactly what I rationalized to myself. Right. Like I had boyfriends. In fact, my first guy I had sex with in high school who made me watch porn. And of course, most porn is completely degrading to women.
Right.
But then there would always be that one requisite, you know, girl on girl scene. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like they're treating each other really nicely. They're equals. Right. You know? Yeah. So I rationalized to myself, I liked it. And I was turned on by it because it was the only thing that was like respectful.
Right, right.
Where both people got something out of it. But yeah, and my husband was the same way, Melissa, where when I told him and I felt horrible, I'm crying, and I was like, I feel really bad. And he was like, hey, that's, you know, whatever works, it's totally fine. That doesn't mean anything. You know, I want you to, you know, tell me what you're picturing. That's just great. Right?
Can I have details, please?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I do think there is a lot of ways to tell yourself it's not that I'm gay. There's other things.
Right. And that's kind of a big thing that you wanted to talk about today, because I know that when so many of us are realizing this, I did the same thing. You're trying to rationalize in your brain as to what these thoughts mean. Yeah. And, you know, I had never allowed myself to think about it. And then once I finally did, I was like, I'm broken. Like something's wrong.
Yes.
Like I've got a brain tumor, or like hormones are out of whack. It's maybe because I got off my birth control, like whatever. Like we will rationalize with anything, you know?
It's like taking the red pill, blue pill from the Matrix. I can't remember which one it is, but once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share, just in case you have listeners who are on the older, later coming out stage, that like me, because I didn't really start to fully, I kept trying throughout my life. I do want to say I kept trying. And every time I kept trying, the door would shut. Or I would tell someone, like I remember there was a TA in college who had decided he was gay. And I said, oh, I think I am too. And he's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, like,
no, you're not. Look at you. No, you're not.
No, sweetie, you're not.
That's cute. And it's like so many people, because I'm
and that was probably a surface level judgment, right? Just like on
I'm flirty,
how you looked.
I'm femme, I don't present. Right. And so even though I would tell people, I want to talk about this, I think this is true, I think about women, and no, you're not. It's just a phase. Or, oh, everyone experiments in college. Like it was constant. I even joined like the gay chorus in school. And even there, the gay women, the lesbians, called me the straight girl.
You're like, guys, get me an in here, guys. I'm showing up.
I turned around and said, how do you know? And they just laughed. Right. So I tried, but it wasn't until, so I married this great guy and we have these wonderful kids, and we just stayed, we're really busy, and he's a wonderful person. I knew he would be a great guy and a great father. And I always knew I wanted to be a mother. I knew I wanted kids, but I just wasn't as sure about the wife part. And so I made sure that he kind of knew I was going to be, having a career and doing my own thing, as well as he. But once I started realizing, our kids are getting older. They're really independent. Pretty soon we're going to not have kids in the house. And I didn't know how I felt about that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm having symptoms of menopause. And just for those who don't know, like it starts a lot earlier than you think.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. Have you?
I'm 48 and I have things that happen that I'm like, is it that? Like I had my blood work done where she's like, it doesn't show signs yet.
No.
But I have things that happen that I'm like, that wouldn't have happened before.
Yeah. There's no tests. I mean, the tests for it are really hard unless they have a baseline level of your estradiol.
Right.
But I mean, to me, the biggest marker was really radically different cycles. But like, it doesn't just get longer and longer. It got shorter first, which sucks. Like I was having 2 a month,
Right.
But the hot flashes, the anxiety, the lower sex drive, like all of that, you start like, what is it? Is it that I don't want to be with my partner, or is it that I'm just having symptoms that I'll eventually get through?
And then I'll be back in my life and happy.
Yeah. Everything will be fine. And it was also a pandemic for me. Right. So I'm also dealing with that stress. So everything, I'm sitting there with my therapist, who I'm pretty sure figured out that I was not straight, like 2 years before I did, she's just like, okay, I'll,
we're gonna go through this again for 2 more years.
Let me get there on my own.
Yeah.
Like the first time I went to a gay bar, I was hard work for me to walk in the door because I was so afraid I would be ostracized, and that imposter syndrome you guys talked about, right?
Going back to chorus too.
They're like, what are you doing in here? I walked in and I did it. And I even talked to some women, and I was so excited. I came back and I told my therapist, oh, I did it. I'm good now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm good.
And what did she say? Or he say?
Why don't you sit with your feelings for just a few minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did. And she's like, so how are you feeling? And I was like, guilt, anxiety, tension, overwhelming, but I'm sure it's the state of the world. And then I just go on about how it's
Were you still though like hope, like Melissa and I talk about like there's fear, and then hope starts to creep in of like what it could be if I met this woman and had this life that I wanted to be in this kind of relationship with a woman. I pictured the whole thing, the garden, the house together, all of it, like hope started to take over where it was like worth it to me to overcome the fear. During that anxious period, you're going to the therapist. Are you also having moments of like, man, I think my life could be so amazing if I followed this, or weren't you weren't there yet?
I still don't think I'm quite there yet. I can start to see glimpses of it. Where I've had that is realizing like, wow, what if I were intellectually, emotionally, and sexually into somebody all at the same time? Right. And I don't think I've ever had that. Yeah. And that sounds really overwhelmingly amazing.
Yeah.
So that would be the closest I would say I've come to the hope. Like if I could actually have all of that at once. It was a good choice. It was a good rational choice to get married, right? And to a good guy. And
it was the right thing to do for that season.
It was the right thing to do for that season. And I have no regrets at all. But I realize now, I was feeling so sick in so many ways, like physically ill, tension. Like every time we would be alone in the house together, I would get like this, I'm clutching my chest for those who are listening. I'm like this huge, like an elephant is standing on my chest feeling. I thought I was having heart attacks and panic attacks, and everything like would close in. I started having passive suicidal thoughts because I was just feeling pulled apart. Like I knew at some level where I needed to go, but I wasn't ready to do it because
it's blowing up
I
everything.
Have this wonderful life. I have everything. Right. Yeah. And that's the other thing I was rationalizing, like what sane woman would give all this up?
Right. Yeah.
I have everything.
My mom and dad, when I came out to them, actually kind of verbalized that. Like, why would you give up this? I mean, look at this. Like, what, are you sure you want to do it?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, God, maybe I don't.
Do I?
Like, do I actually?
Hold on. It's like the closet door. It's like the crack, and you put your toe out, and then you put it back in, and then you have a little bit. For like a year and a half, probably, of just like stepping out and then stepping back in.
And were you stepping out like Melissa and I? In that we say there was like 2 years of that kind of exploring until the divorce happened, but we had each other, and we had a community. We had our group. We had we had a core 4 women that became friends quickly from a therapy group that like we could call each other and be like, I'm fucking terrified right now. Help me. Who do you have?
Yeah, that's great. I'm really envious of that. I'm actually, I wish that I had that. But what I had was, I would go to DC.
Okay.
I have some connections there, and, I found a community of people that were amazing. And what I kept thinking, and they're all just friends. Like this isn't a gay community. This is just friends, but they're people who saw me as me.
Yeah.
They didn't see me as a mom. They didn't see me as a career person. They saw
Jim's
me
wife.
as just Allie.
Yeah.
And that was enough.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd really felt that way. And it let me start to realize, okay, I can stay in my marriage and I can value my marriage above myself. Or I can choose me.
Yeah.
And when we started couples therapy, the couples therapist asked like, okay, why are you here? And my husband, good guy that he is, well, I want to fix our marriage. I want to make sure we have the best relationship we can have. And I said, I want to be a healthy and whole human being.
Yeah. Two totally different mindsets. I mean,
I just knew I couldn't, I literally felt pulled apart between the wanting to be the good partner and be rational and logical and hold on to all these lovely, wonderful things that I had and not burn it down.
Well, and how about Allie, fulfill the responsibility that you have? You made a commitment.
Yeah.
I felt that of like, I need to fulfill this commitment I made to these 3 people that are depending on us and this wonderful man.
Yeah. And then what happened was my body said, fuck you.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, literally my body shut down. And so this is the other thing, like part of perimenopausal symptoms is loss of libido and pain with sex. those are symptoms of getting older and the menopausal hormones or the reproductive hormones decreasing. So now it's like, okay, I'm having these symptoms. So I go through this process of I'm reading all these books about menopause. Like, this is my side gig. You guys have this. My side gig was learning as much as I can because I'm a scientist, right? So I'm going to read all these books about what are the symptoms of menopause. All right. So now I see, oh, okay, this feeling of panic and anxiety and headaches and sex drive, that's all related to these symptoms. So that's it.
And then are you feeling relief? Like, oh, thank God, it's just menopause.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah. Right. And I had my partner read it too. And he's like, oh yeah, I can totally see that. So he was very supportive and understanding. That was great. But then I started doing, like a scientist, an ABA design, which is an experimental design where you see if the symptoms change in different conditions, right? So the A design is, okay, I'm here with my partner and I'm feeling all this tension. And then B is I go to DC and I feel better magically. Like I get in the car and I drive away and I feel release.
Yikes.
And then I come back and it instantly starts up again. And it wasn't about my kids. Like it wasn't when it was like when they were home, it wasn't about that. It was if we were home alone. Like he could tell, he would walk in the room. If I was doing yoga or something, he would walk in the room and he could tell I would tense up. Like I was afraid of what he was going to ask of me.
Yeah.
I had just gotten to the point where I couldn't say yes anymore. I had too much self-realization to know to say yes. So I went to the doctor, like to rule out, am I having health issues? I got the EKG, like
the brain tumor, Melissa's brain tumor.
Yeah, right. You got to rule out those health issues. Yeah. I got on medication for anxiety. So, okay, I'm going to deal with the anxiety. Like that's, and that is a thing, perimenopausal. If you have it's not that menopause causes it. It's if you have pre-existing mood disorders, it's more likely to come back. It's like puberty, right? Like everything kicks into high gear in puberty and things are changing again in perimenopause. So I got on medication that helped kind of level some of that out. But then I still was having depressive thoughts and tension. And so then I have the therapist, the doctor, okay, so I'm starting to like read my own journal and connect these dots. I was like, what the heck? Okay, this has always been here. It happens more when my partner's around and no one else is home. I got to sit with this. And that's when the therapist comes in handy, because then it's like, okay. And I remember the day where I accepted it, where I just sat there and I just sat with it. And I was like, okay. I have to accept that this is me.
Yeah.
Now what?
And then say more.
Well, I called my mom.
Whoa, that would be my last phone call. Oh my God.
Right. It was wild. I left and I called my mom. It was fascinating. Like she was raised in an era where that was like really bad.
Yeah.
She would always say, she's very progressive and liberal, but she would always say, well, why would anyone choose to be gay?
Yeah.
Right. As in she's being really supportive, but it was like, Mom, it kind of sounds like you're saying it's the worst thing ever. Right. So
it's so gross. Nobody would want that.
Let's maybe temper that a little bit. But she actually shared a story with me about having a woman friend that other women friends warned her about hanging out with too much. And she says, I always wondered what that was about and what would have happened if I kept being friends with her. So I learned something by sharing with her. I got on dating apps. And, I remember I started exploring that. And then after my first set of dates, and one of them, there was chemistry. And I come back and I call my husband and he was like, well, how'd it go? And I'm like, yeah, it's real.
Oh boy.
And he was devastated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Devastated. He was crying.
Oh,
it was horrible.
It's the worst.
It was horrible. But I also, at that point, I had cried for a year and a half. Like I'd been a mess.
You were ready.
So I had to just let him cry and sit with him.
Yeah.
Where is he at now with everything? Like
he's dating now as well. So there's this book called Married Women Who Love Women, which is a different vibe than what you all. So I know you all are like, you have to separate to explore your own thing. You have to, not that you have to. Yeah. Sorry, you all just say there's no one right way, right?
Yeah.
But that was your experience, right? So this book is also like, there's other paths, and some women choose to stay in their relationship. I think we have this radical acceptance of where we're at. That's kind of unusual. And that was partially thanks to Me encouraging him to talk to a friend, because I was it. Yeah. Right? I was the emotional carer for the family, including him. So I made sure he had started therapy, and I made sure he was talking to a friend before all this came down. And he shared with his friend. They drank a lot of bourbon. They cried. Yeah. And his friend was in the arts community, and his friend was like, this is about her. It's not about you, and you need to support her. This is really hard for her. And that was a game changer. It just helped him see I wasn't doing it to him. I was doing it for me.
Right. It's a totally,
and really for him too. I mean,
yes,
I talk about this a lot. Like, I think it was just a total game changer when my ex-husband started dating and found someone that fit him well.
Right.
And just to see that difference in what a relationship can look like and how fulfilling it can be.
Right. Yeah, we always thought about it like my foot was always on the brakes. If you've read that book, The Come As You Are, I think it's book. In that one.
Oh my God.
So we were reading that together. I was like, because we need to work on this. I did so much. I mean, I brought home like conversation cards. I was like doing so much of that work, right? Like, let's help ramp up our relationship. So we were reading that together, and like my foot was always on the brakes.
Same.
So I thought that was normal. Like, that was just that the book talks about that, right?
Yeah. Come As You Are. For anyone who's listening, the book is Come As You Are. It's so good. But okay, keep going. I've read it twice.
It's at the end of that book that it says, but one of the reasons your foot might be on the brakes is sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you feel like in your experience, I don't know how, I know you're doing some dating, but I still feel like I have brakes. Which is confusing.
I don't right now. My foot's fully on the gas.
Say she's in the 15-year-old phase right now.
I am in the 13-year-old boy or 15-year-old boy phase. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, and not to say like I've really only been able to date a little bit because I'm going to DC. Like, we've agreed, we have some rules about not doing it in our home area. We're in a pretty small town, so we're trying to be respectful. Our kids know, they're very cool, about it. But, it's a small community, and it's confusing if people don't know what's going on with us. It's really none of their business.
Right.
So we've told our close circle, and then we're just, I'm going to one city. He's going to a different one for dating.
Oh, that's
Do you guys have like a plan in place? Like, what's the end game here? Or is it just kind of like, let's see where this goes?
No. And in fact, that was where I got really messed up in my therapy, was like, oh my God, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and then this, and I was catastrophizing, and I don't want to burn it down. And my therapist was amazing. And she was like, you just need to take one day at a time.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's the only thing you can do.
Right.
And that's where we're both at right now.
And I think staying in that, like, we made, in that therapy that we originally went to therapy kind of thinking we would stay together a long time ago. And then little by little things progressed, and we ended up divorcing. But we always did say we're still a family. We're just a modern, different looking family. We still do every holiday. We're together at birthdays, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. We are together with the kids. So it doesn't.
I'm hopeful for that.
Changed. Yeah.
Yeah. And when we were in couples therapy, he would say, I don't want to lose you. And I'm like, you can't lose me. Yeah. I'm the mother of your children.
Right.
you can't get rid of me.
Right.
No matter how much you might want to.
It's true. But like, I do remember little losses. So it's like, then I would pull him back. Like, don't do that, or I need you to still do this. And he,
he's very handy around the house. And so I feel that big time. Like, who's going to pull the hair out of the drain?
Yeah. Okay. It's the worst job ever, especially with come
on. You can do that. That one's easy.
I cannot do it.
Not that I can't do it. It's I want to.
It's terrible.
That might be the worst job in the whole house.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's mostly my hair, so it really should be my job. But I will say one thing just to your listeners too. Like, we ended up not continuing with our couples therapist. And what happened was, every time we would leave our sessions, we would realize that he felt great and I felt horrible.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, we kind of realized that I was getting gaslit, because that whole, like, how could you want to not be with this wonderful person?
Yeah.
Being villainized.
Kind of the messaging. And then when I said I'd gone and I'd had this great experience with a woman that I thought maybe, and then I got this immediate, like, are you saying now you're ready to end this? Is this the end? And it was very like accusatory, like it was all on me, and that there was no in between. It was either you're married or you're not. And now you're going to get divorced because you've gone and had a fling, or we ended up desisting that couples therapy. Yeah, and I think that's really important to listen to your gut. If you're always feeling worse than your partner, like you should feel something after therapy if it's working. But I was feeling guilty and like I was the one that was broken, right? Mm-hmm. It was my fault. And I didn't do this to myself. Like, no. This is something that now my partner realizes he wants to support me to be healthy and whole and true to myself. And to be asked to make that choice, are you going to be true to yourself or are you going to stay in a marriage where neither of you is fully satisfied? Like, it's not really a choice. To me.
Right. Allie, tell us about like dating at this stage in the game. Like, how has that been as far as like, do you come home and tell Jim about it? Or do you kind of just do it quietly and get like secretly super excited?
It's tricky. Yeah. It's actually really, really tricky. I don't even know. So it's fairly new still.
Okay. And is it dating apps?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I like to give our people, like, I think our listeners a lot of
times people always want to know
how do you meet?
I got on Match. Okay. The main reason that Match worked for us, both of us, is because you could set your location.
Okay.
Most of them, they want it to be, you turn on your location where you are now.
Right.
And that wouldn't work for us because we're going places to date.
Right.
So you could set the location on Match. And I was very open. Like everything I said on my thing was, this is my situation. I'm traveling a lot. So I was trying to let people know. I didn't want it to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Right.
But my first dating experiences, he did want to know. And I told him, I don't want to kiss and tell. I don't want this to titillate you. Like, that's not the point,
No.
But it did help him just to know what had happened at the basics.
Yeah.
Even though it was probably hard for him to hear, he appreciated just knowing because he was assuming even worse.
Totally.
Or like the image. And he also was worried about my safety.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I told him just the basics and he could tell that I was happy. When he met someone, which is just fairly recent, it was really hard because, he's my person.
Yeah.
And I don't have a new person. Like I'm just exploring and being happy and hopeful and, in the dating world. But he found somebody that really connected. And I was depressed for a good 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like, this is really happening. Not that I wanted to go backwards.
No.
Not that I wanted, but it was like, this is real. Yeah. This is really happening. And I'm happy for him. I'm also sad.
Right.
I'm also grieving.
Him up. And it's something that you think about. If 5 years ago or 10 years ago, he would have been with some other woman, I would have been completely heartbroken, crushed.
Yeah.
So it's like then to have it happen, even though want it for him. I remember that feeling of being like a little heartbroken.
And I think if we didn't feel that way, that's not a good sign, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the unconditional love. I unconditionally love him and he unconditionally loves me so much. We want them to be with someone else.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I have a question though about like when you're dating, how are you telling people about your current situation?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, as I'll tell them as much as they want to know. I mean, I like I said, I'm really open on the app. I say, I say a little bit about myself first, here's how great I am. And then I say, if you're still reading, I have a husband and I have kids and, we're still working out the details, but I'd love to meet you and we can have a connection. I hope, if we meet and there's a spark, let's go from there. Mm-hmm. Which is an honest thing to say. The people that I'm dating now, like they know where we're at. I don't know, like people have asked me, are you going to get a divorce? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, that's the $1 million question. I wish I had an answer. I can't. I'm not gonna be a U-Haul lesbian. I'm not gonna jump on a U-Haul and like move away from my family. I want to be there for my kids, for the next couple of years. So, but I am very free to travel, and it's kind of the people that tend to reach out to me are people who also have complicated situations. Is what I found. They can empathize, or they have been in complicated situations.
Right, and I think it is like it gives you time. We talk about like building your toolbox of things that you figuring out what feels good, what books are helping me, what exercise do you do? Yoga. I like to run. I love podcasts. I love there's things like I do. I know when my anxiety is coming on or something comes up for me, I know what my tools are now because I had that space to figure out. I know what will get me to sleep if I can't sleep because I'm stressed.
I want to say there's I didn't have a group like you guys did, but I do have a best friend who, I have a therapist and I have a best friend.
Yeah.
And those are the two people I can process everything with no judgment, and they will listen. I take walks with my best friend. So we walk all around. So we're getting exercise and processing. She's a therapist by training.
Yeah.
But not, like with me, she's just my friend. And her support has been invaluable. Like
everybody needs
cannot
that
say enough.
Yeah. And doesn't have an agenda.
Right. But also I think, we always talk about group and having our little circle of friends there. Like, you don't need a whole circle.
No.
As long as you have one good person that you can talk to and be an outlet that you can trust. A therapist is also another great asset to have. Mm-hmm. Those things can really do a lot for you.
And the more people I tell, the better I feel. That's the other. So we've been slowly telling people. Sometimes if it's like group friends, like people we've known as a couple, we're telling them together, like the two of us together. And so that's been helpful. We've told, every time I tell people, it's just like a little bit more tension releases and I can be more real.
Yeah.
Which is very also gratifying and confirming.
Yeah. Cause you're not hiding anything little by little, you're not hiding.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I look forward to that, like feeling more completely open. I mean, the other thing that happened was you start talking to enough people and then people suggest other people. So one of the first things I did was reach out to someone in my career world who recommended to me the Facebook groups. So there's 2 private Facebook groups Coming Out Late and Vita Nova.
Okay.
So those are both designed for women coming out late, and you have to just contact the organizers and explain who you are, and they'll verify you, and then you can get in. And so that was a really helpful resource. So she turned me on to that.
You should put your city that you meet people in. It's not for dating, but it's on our Insta. We have a map where people have kind of met people just locality wise. Like they'll say, I'm in, DC. And then 3 other people are like, I'm in DC too. Let's have dinner.
Oh, that'd be great.
I think that was that. I mean, I've heard a lot of people meet on there.
Mm-hmm.
But that community is everything at the beginning. Yeah. I mean, it's great. I had a best friend. I still do. She's amazing, and I tell her everything. But there is something really cool about women that are going through this, but that you're not interested in. Like that they're just solid friends. You have us now, but
I'm so grateful.
Yeah. But I think it's just helpful. Like I remember meeting Melissa was game changing for me. Because it's like, here's me. I mean, she's a mom. She's loved her husband dearly. He's a great guy. There wasn't this, I don't know. There's something about that felt really reassuring.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually thank my best friend for not only has she always been there, but she's also never made me confused.
Yeah.
It's always been very clear that there's no extra thing. And in fact, my therapist asked, do you have a crush on her? Yeah. And I was like, I guess I could. We're so close.
Yeah.
But there's no flirting. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some people could make it confusing.
Right.
But yeah, and I'm realizing that's something I have to learn too, is being friends with women I am attracted to. I've never had that experience, but I've never allowed myself to realize that was happening,
Yeah.
So
that's a whole nother topic that we've delved into, but we should delve into again, which is those gray areas. And why it is harder for someone like me who likes safety and security to be with women, because there's this whole community of friends. With men, there's that natural buffer of I'm not going to hang out with my husband's friends. That would be weird to meet them for lunch. But women, anyone's it's like, these are my friends, but also I'm hanging out with you. Oh, now I'm kind of interested.
Right.
I'm in a relationship. It's just more nebulous.
Yeah.
I think the big thing too that I really like about what you are doing is that you are really not putting a timeline on this or putting pressure on yourself to make some sort of decision, because so many of us end up where it feels like someone has lit the fuse and you've got to run before that bomb goes off. And it puts people in such a place where they can't process things. They're making rash decisions. They're feeling like they have to wind up with that catalyst because that's their safety, So I feel like you guys are doing it right. And I think your husband is just lovely for how he is reacting in all this. And I think a lot of husbands can kind of take a page from his playbook and just kind of chilling, and like letting this process play out, and also exploring what's open for them. Right. The end of your marriage doesn't have to mean the end of their life,
and their relationship with you will be dictated,
and the relationship for you.
In the future.
I mean, he's now, he's my best friend, for sure. Right? Like that's going to be, I hope. And the trick will be if he starts dating someone, are they confident enough to handle that? Like,
and same with me being
still in the picture.
Same could be said for you. You will meet someone likely, and will they be able to handle that relationship? I mean, I think that comes up a lot for me now.
Oh yeah, right. And that was very clear. So the first, I mean, I guess it was my catalyst. That was definitely an issue right away. But I didn't get as far as you all did with your catalyst. Like basically, it was a really intense connection, and then they reacted like, aren't you? What's going on? I think I said something nice about him, and then it was like, what? Are you going to go back to him now?
Yeah.
Oh that was the text response. And I was like, I never left him. Like, what are we talking about? And
wow.
It was, I got really like, wait a minute, what? So I ended it right then, but I could totally see where if we'd gotten together one more time, it would have been a train that had gone crazily off the rails.
Yeah, like, Melissa, and I can tell you a lot about that. Exactly. Unfortunately.
It was insane. But yeah, I'm not worried about going back. And I don't think he's worried about that either. It's more just sitting with that discomfort and pain that comes with grief of the loss. But also I'm excited for him and I'm excited for me. So I don't know what that looks like yet, what the hope looks like. But I know it's more satisfying for both of us.
That's amazing. I love what you're doing, and we're running out of time, but I feel like I want to have you, would you come back on? Because I want to dive more into the perimenopause stuff, and I feel like we didn't have enough time.
Yeah, if people are interested in that, it amazes me how much people don't know about it, and it starts way sooner than you think. If you have a uterus and you are 40, it's coming.
That's what I'm saying. And even just the talk of the anxiety stuff. Like, I feel like the anxiety is real, and you can blame it on all these other things, but at our age, that is something.
I would love to like try to link up and keep up with what is going on with you guys.
Yeah,
it's going to be a roller coaster. It's, the end has not been written. Like I said, this is the messy middle for sure. So.
Want to support the Lesbian Chronicles podcast? Rate us and write a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
We love listener feedback. If you'd like to share your story, email us at melissaandallie@gmail.com. That's Melissa, MELISA, and Allie, ALLI, @gmail.com. Or follow us on Instagram at Lesbian Chronicles.